Hi, I'm Mel Van Dusen, and welcome to the show. Today we're going to talk about the Peninsula Peace and Justice Center, which is celebrating its 25th anniversary this month. And to help us understand what the center is doing and what their projects are, we have with us the director of the center, Paul George. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mel.
Yeah.
My pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Paul, just 2 days ago I read in the San Jose Mercury that there was a poll taken, and 2/3 of Americans think U.S. foreign policy is on the wrong track. 73% say the United States is not doing a good job as leader in creating more peaceful and prosperous world. And 84% say initiating military force only when we have the support of our allies should be important to our foreign policy.
Yeah, I saw that poll. It's a very interesting reactions.
Why is it that so many Americans have taken so long to wake up?
Well, to their credit, actually, I think people want to believe that their government is doing the right thing. They want to believe, first of all, that they've selected the right people. You know, you don't want to think that you voted for the wrong guy and you put somebody in that's just lousing everything up. But Americans are probably overly optimistic sometimes, and you know, nobody wants to believe that their government makes such serious mistakes, engages in such serious transgressions as unprovoked war, which this Iraq war is. And so it takes a while for people to admit to something like this. It takes evidence piling up over a period of time. That's one of the things we try to do at Peninsula Peace and Justice Center, is try to give a fuller picture so people can make these analyses a little quicker than they might if they were, you know, just watching television news.
But if people don't have access to your center, then they'll have to rely on the media.
Well,
What are the problems with doing that?
Well, first of all, with television news, it's a limited format. You just can't get enough information in the amount of time allotted on a half-hour news show to even begin to grasp the complexities of the issues that we need to be grasping. A group called Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting did a study, and the study itself is several years old now, but they took a look at the average soundbite on the evening news, the major network news of back in the 60s and 70s, and found that it was about 20 seconds long. That's not sufficient to begin with. It's now down to around 6 seconds. Now, how are you going to get a picture of what our leaders are thinking with 6 seconds of information, you know, coming from them? It's just impossible. Now, you also have, you know, newspapers are a much better source because they have time to go deeper into the issues. But I'm afraid a lot of people just don't read beyond the jump. They don't go into the inside of the paper, take that time. People have busy lives. They want to get information fed to them rapidly and get the picture. So, you know, part of the onus is on the average citizen to take the time to get the information that they need.
And yet, if they were to listen to one of President Bush's very infrequent question-answer periods, you'd find that...
And more infrequent.
More and more infrequent. You'd find that the questions that are asked really are not very thought-provoking.
No,
they're timid.
They're not very challenging at all, and this is a real problem. Because the reporter, the journalist who actually challenges those in power suddenly finds himself or herself without access to that power. And without access, they're no longer a reporter or a journalist. So it's a real problem.
What is her name? Helen Palmer? Is that her name?
Helen Thomas.
Helen Thomas, that's it.
Yeah, just got moved to the second row after 30 years in the front row.
And how many times has she been called on in this administration?
Not many.
Once,
not
twice?
many, because Helen is one of the people who will challenge whoever's in power. She's the kind of Washington journalist that we need a lot more of. That front row in the White House press room should be filled with Helen Thomases, but it's not.
And you're, in a way, providing a Helen Thomas service.
And we try to.
Yeah.
We try to.
You do a show.
Yeah, we do.
Tell us about that.
Well, it's called Other Voices, and
It's at the Media Center in Palo Alto.
It's at the Community Media Center in Palo Alto. It's monthly. We broadcast live. That's pretty exciting. On the first Tuesday of every month. It's a talk show format, an interview format. And I have guests on. We cover a wide variety of issues, just as Peninsula Peace and Justice Center has a wide variety of issues on our agenda. Happy to say that this year we won the Wave Award for Best Talk Show on the Issues.
Wow.
And we've been
Congratulations.
honored. Thank you. We've been so honored in the past as well. So we work hard at it. We have a live studio audience, so it gets pretty lively. They participate in the conversation. That's how we refer to it, as a conversation. And I think it's a good way to get information out to people. It's the title of it is intentional in that these are people that aren't normally heard in the media. They are experts in whatever field they're experts in, but they're not getting calls for quotes from the news media, just like I don't usually get called.
Right. Yeah, I went to your last show in which you interviewed Ali. What's his last name?
Ferdowsi, Dr. Ali Ferdowsi,
and his position is. He's an expert on Iran.
He's from Iran.
Right.
He continues to go back to Iran for about 3 months every year, specifically to do research on the political and social situation there.
And then you had another man.
The other person was Shahram Aghamir. He's also from Iran. He is a producer of a KPFA radio program called Voices of the Middle East and North Africa. So, he's keeps his attention focused there. And most Iranian Americans are watching things develop very carefully now because the saber rattling going on. They and I feel that Iran is really under threat, and that some kind of U.S. attack may be in the offing in the very near future, maybe next year, maybe by the end of the summer. Who knows?
I asked Dr. Ali why that would be. Why would we attack Iran? Not so much because of the nuclear issue, but because he said we want to destabilize the government. And I naively asked, well, why would we want to do that? And he said, because this government doesn't like the government that's in there. And, the United States has a history, I think, of interfering in other governments to try and, you know what I mean?
Yeah, when it comes to Iran, you can forget the nuclear issue. That's the excuse. What's really at play here, same thing that was at play in Iraq, is the United States wants control of this region, one way or the other. Doesn't mean they want to be the government, doesn't mean they want to dictate everything, but they want, because of the phenomenal oil energy resources there. When I say control, what I mean is they want to be able to control the flow of oil, not access to oil. Okay, other countries can buy oil. Oil is going to be on the market. If you have money, you're going to be able to buy oil. Big question is, how much are you going to be able to buy that oil for? The United States is in severe economic competition constantly with other major blocs in the world: Europe, China, Japan. If we get to set the price of oil, which we do by controlling so much of Iraq's oil now, that's a powerful economic leverage against these other countries. So there's the matter of political, economic control. Iran has great hopes of being a major player in the Middle East, and it should be. It's a huge country, has 4 times the population of Iraq to begin with. Has very advanced society. That makes it a threat to the United States. Not to mention that it's controlled by a government that took our hostages, has been an enemy for over 20 years, perceived as an enemy. And so the United States wants to keep Iran from pretending to any powerful regional player role for Iran.
And by invading Iraq, we've destabilized that region, which gives more power to them. So we've inadvertently shot ourselves in the foot.
Oh yeah, the real winner of the Iraq War has been Iran to this point. You know, if I think if the neocons in the White House could have been made to believe that what they were going to do was destabilize the whole region, they might not have done it, because that wasn't their intent. They wanted a stable region under U.S. control, countries that are willing to carry out U.S. orders.
Is it that they just didn't take into account all the things that could have happened? I mean, were they really that naive not to foresee that by invading Iraq, there's a possibility we will destabilize everything and cause a civil war to break out, which will in turn cause this to happen? I know that Bush is incurious. Did he make up his mind? I know it's the PNAC doctrine.
Yeah, no, it's. I don't think it's naivete at all. It's the arrogance of power. They just don't believe that they can be defeated. And why should they? I mean, we pour more into our military than the next 20 countries combined. You know, it's scandalous how much our country spends on military spending.
And the more we spend, the more we're hated.
Yeah, and the more the infrastructure in our cities declines, the more we spend on the military, the more our educational system declines, the more we spend on our military, the more our healthcare system goes to pot. It has a lot of effects, in addition to the effect that you allude to overseas.
What is your center doing about this? What activities do you offer? What educational opportunities do you offer? What does the center, how does the center help people come to terms with what we're going through?
Well, we break down our program into what we call 3 basic areas: education, information, and action. And we think the action begins with education. As we started out talking, people just don't have a good sense of what's going on. So alternative forms of information, whether it's speaker forums, the TV show that we do, our website, all these things are geared toward bringing alternative viewpoints, other ways of thinking about information that's not getting conveyed in our corporate media. So a lot of our energy goes into that. Last year we put on something like 30 speakers, okay, just over the course of a year. Some are local folks like Dr. Ferdowsi that you referred to. Some are internationally known names like Robert Fisk, the renowned foreign correspondent for the Independent of London. 1,000 people came out to hear him because he has, you know, he knows the stuff. He's lived in the region. So it's a mix of things like that. Information is, we keep an eye on Congress, and we send out alerts about, you know, what's coming up in Congress, because it's a very hard thing for the average citizen to do, but it's very necessary to respond and write those letters, call the congressional office. We really encourage people to do that.
How long have you been director here?
I started, I almost cringe when I tell this story, but I had been there as a part-timer since 1988, and then I was promoted to director on August 1st, 1990. And if you remember your history, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait on August 2nd, 1990, and George Bush, the elder, deployed 50,000 U.S. troops to the Persian Gulf on August 6th. So I had one heck of first week as director of the Peace and Justice Center. So 17 years.
And during the course of the 17 years, as you look back, what's been the most frustrating time for you?
Well, there are a lot of frustrations, constant frustrations. You know, if you believe in human rights and justice and equality, there's a lot of frustrating things that come out of Washington. But I got to say, this current administration, with its secrecy, with its constant attacks on our civil liberties, its attempts to stifle dissent, unprovoked war is just an outrage. It's an utter outrage, and that becomes very frustrating. Just everything has gone wrong with these people. They you know, it's hard to know where to begin. With a half-hour program, I couldn't even begin to list what I see as the sins of this administration. But they have damaged the American political system. They have damaged the checks and balances of our country that our constitutional system requires to function properly. And I don't mean that they've pushed a little bit. They have broken the system. They have broken all the rules. These are a bunch of lawbreakers. They have ruined U.S. foreign policy. Nobody in the world trusts us anymore, rightfully so. I don't want to skip over this point, and I hope your viewers will really understand this. This attack on Iraq was an unprovoked attack. They did not threaten us. They did not attack us. Same thing is true of Iran if we end up bombing them. This is what the chief judge at Nuremberg said was the root of all other war crimes, unprovoked attack on another country. This is a very serious departure from past U.S. foreign policy. Not that we haven't meddled in the internal affairs of other countries before. We have, to a very serious, disappointing extent, but nothing on the scale that this administration has done. When you have an attorney general, he was then White House counsel, Alberto Gonzales, referring to the Geneva Conventions as outmoded and quaint, we have a very serious problem. Right. We have a very serious problem. For all our country's problems in foreign policy, our meddling in other countries, there has been, I think generally on the part of the American people as a whole and our political establishment as a whole, a commitment to human rights, a commitment to the concept of human rights and international law. Otherwise, we have anarchy and chaos on the international scene. Well, this administration has destroyed that. They have destroyed what has been perceived by the rest of the world as our country's commitment to that. And that's probably the most damaging thing that they've done. Bush has tarnished our image and reputation in this world to a degree that I wouldn't have thought imaginable 6 years ago.
So when he first took office, you could not have imagined the position that we're in now?
No. Listen, when 9/11 happened, that tragic incident 6 years ago, almost 6 years ago, Bush was already headed for a failed presidency. He had only been in office 9 months. He had done nothing. He had accomplished nothing. He was adrift. He had no idea what he was doing. And then
9/11 gave him purpose.
9/11 gave him an excuse to carry out a lot of what they came into office wanting to do, but weren't able to accomplish. And the main thing, when I say what they came into office wanting to do, if you look at the history of people like Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld, who is now finally gratefully departed, but a major player in the early days of the administration, they go back to the Nixon administration. And they have been chomping at the bit about the restrictions on presidential power that Congress put on the office of the president in the wake of the Watergate scandals. They've been wanting to get rid of those and reinstitute a very powerful presidency, almost an imperial presidency. And I'm afraid they've succeeded to this point, and it's going to be really difficult to undo.
We've got a new Congress now.
Always a hopeful sign.
Nancy Pelosi has been in Syria. She's talking to people that this administration refused to talk to, so the ice is being broken. She was certainly a breath of fresh air going over there, I thought.
This trip has been important. I think, if for no other reason than to contrast the administration's policy of we're not talking to anybody ever. That's not diplomacy. To me, the more important thing about the new Congress is not the bills that they're passing, and some of those have been very important, not to downplay those. But one of the most critical functions of Congress is its oversight powers. And with an administration out of control that had virtually no oversight during the previous 6 years of a Republican-controlled Congress, they never asked a question. Never asked a question in this administration. Well, why do you need this authority? Why do you need that authority? The oversight and the hearings that they're holding now, and there are so many, you can hardly keep up with them. Certainly the papers and TV aren't reporting on all of them. But it's a critical thing that they're doing, and it's going to realign a little bit the balance of power that we really need. It's starting to shift back.
Congress is beginning to lift up the rug to see what's been hidden under there.
Yeah. Right now, I think the analogy I would use is they're peeking through the keyhole. The door is still solidly locked in the White House, but they're knocking at the door and they're looking in the keyhole and they're going around and looking in the window and trying to get at just what this administration has been doing. This has been, even Republican Congress people will admit this. This has been the most secretive administration we've ever had in this country.
What's the best that you can hope for in the next 2 years?
That Bush doesn't obliterate the planet somehow or other. I really, at some point...
You're serious about that?
I am serious. This is a dangerous guy. He should not be underestimated. He should not be underestimated. He's totally isolated.
Incurious.
Yeah. When you have an election where the people of this country spoke so clearly last November that they wanted a change of a direction, they wanted out of Iraq, what does he do? He escalates the war. Okay? He doesn't care what you or I think. He doesn't care about what the general public thinks. In other words, he doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care what Congress thinks. He's been signing bills for the past 6 years with these so-called signing statements that he issues along with them that says, I'm not going to follow this part, and this part. It's the president's job to administer the laws, not pick and choose which ones he likes.
If his intention is to control the flow of oil in the Middle East, he's not going to leave. That's his intention. That's what he wants to do. He's not there to bring democracy, certainly, because that's failed. He's talking about victory, whatever that
bringing
means.
Democracy was also excuse number 5A or something.
Right. I know we have to excuse after excuse after excuse.
Right.
But it does look dangerous.
Yeah. Listen, the reason, Congress keeps asking, where's your exit plan? Well, there's no exit plan because the strategy never was to exit. The strategy was to have a permanent U.S. military presence in the Middle East. Now, if we had more time, I could go through the whole history, but I'll just point out to you in 1988, a guy named General Norman Schwarzkopf was testifying before the United States Senate to the need for the United States to have a permanent military presence in the Middle East. U.S. policy under Democrats and Republicans has been gearing this way for many years. So this is why it's not surprising that he's not responding. That leaves it up to us to speak out even louder. And again, people need to be involved in our democracy. It's not just voting. You have to pick up the phone and call Congress or write an email, write a letter to the editor, do something.
So the best that you can foresee for the next 2 years would be?
That Congress continue and strengthen its oversight and try to rein in this out-of-control Congress, and that the people of this country, through local organizations like the Peace and Justice Center, whether it's demonstrations or an action alert to call Congress or whatever, that we collectively raise our voices and say no attack on Iran and get our troops out. The people have spoken clearly. We want an end to this war. The people know it's a failed effort. Shouldn't have happened in the first place. It needs to be brought to an end. Our own Congress needs to hear that. They just gave them another year's worth of funding. That's no good. They can give them the funding to bring the troops home. We need to get out of there. And that it's been encouraging, these poll numbers that you started off the program with, that level of awareness that things are off the rails, that are going the wrong way in this country. That's very encouraging. And at some point, I think in the next couple of years, the American people as a whole will get so agitated that just as Richard Nixon lost his entire political base George Bush will lose his political base. The Republicans in Congress are going to realize this guy is an anchor and he's going to sink me, and they're going to start leaving his side. And then we'll have a politically powerless, isolated president, and maybe we can just get through the last year without him doing anything except going clearing brush down in Crawford.
How has being involved in the peace movement changed you personally?
Well, it's been my life really since I was excuse me, since I was a teenager. So,
has it made you feel more powerful, less powerful? Do you see possibilities that you didn't see before?
It makes me feel energetic and alive. I love being out in the middle of a demonstration and seeing 100,000 people who care enough about this country, care enough about these issues, that they go out in the streets. See people give their lives, give up their freedom for human rights. People around the world. I've met some amazing people who are inspirational.
You're going to have an anniversary party coming up.
April
25th anniversary.
April 22nd is Sunday. April 22nd is to the day 25 years ago that we opened our doors. It was April 22nd, 1982. We're going to be having a party. Everyone's welcome, starting at 5 p.m. at the Unitarian Church at 505 East Charleston in Palo Alto. We're going to have serve a picnic supper. We're going to have music. We're going to have some speakers and entertainment. It's all free and open to the public. Come help us celebrate an important community institution.
Good, good. Any parting words? We've got about 1 minute left.
My message is always to the citizens of this country, the residents of this country, be active. Democracy doesn't take place just when you walk into the voting booth. That's the least part of it. The important thing is to be active and informed every day. Do something each week to end this war. Call Congress once a week, or write a letter to the editor, or write to your congressperson. Do something, or your senator. Find something you can do just once a week and do it. Don't just sit around watching the TV news and going, isn't it terrible? It is terrible. Take action.
Okay. Paul, thank you very much for
Thank you, Mel.
sharing with us your experiences and your views about the future, your possible views about the future. And, well, you heard him. I hope you take his advice, do one thing every day. We have two possible futures here. I think these two possible futures are very credible. It could be one or it could be other. Let's choose the better one. And if you have time, come out and enjoy the party. See you next time.